As we know that United Nations always come out with new SDG economic every year. Nowadays, we already have a 17th SDG economics. And in these presentations, we're gonna dig more about SDG 7 to SDG 12. Welcome to Prof.Madya, Dr. Janice and my fellow friends who are watching this presentations video. My name is Nur Shafina bintu Umal. My number matric is BB24110066. During these presentations, we have a 6-member group, and I'm the first one who's gonna present for today's, and I'm gonna present also on 4.6 and also 5.0 for the practical futures. And I'm gonna sum up on these presentations. Today, I will briefly introduce our report on the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDG. The SDG were introduced by the United Nations in 2015 as a global plan to create a better and more sustainable future by 2030. There are 70 goals that focus on ending poverty, protecting the environment, and improving people's quality of life. Our report focused on SDG 7 to 12, covering the period from 2016 to 2035. We examined the progress achieved, the challenges faced, and the recommendations for each goal. SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, focus on ensuring access to affordable, reliable, and sustainable energy for everyone. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, promotes economic growth, decent employment, fair wages, and safe working conditions. SDG 9, industry innovations and infrastructure, encourage resilient infrastructure, industry development and technology innovations. SDG 10, reduce inequality, aims to reduce inequality and promote equal opportunity for all. SDG 11, sustainable city and community, focus on making cities safer, more inclusive, and environmentally sustainable. And the last one, SDG 12, responsible consumptions and production, encourage the efficiency use of resources, reducing waste, and promoting sustainable consumption. Overall, our report analyzes the achievement, challenges, and the future directions of these 6 goals over the past decades, while highlighting their importance in achieving the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Continue with Chapter 2, Literature Review, Section 2.1. Discuss the main theories behind SDG 7 over the past decade. There has been a shift towards renewable energy, such as solar power, to improve electricity access. However, many developing countries still face challenges, including the use of polluting cooking fuels and limited financial resources. Section 2.2 explains how the progress of SDG 7 to 12 is measured using different economic, social, and environmental indicators. However, limited data in some countries remain challenges. Section 2.3 focuses on institutional challenges such as poor conditions between a government agency, weak transparency, and limited data management, which slow the achievement of the SDG. Section 2.4 highlights the importance of the inclusive economic policy, quality educations, and international cooperations in supporting sustainable development. In Section 2.5, identifies the research gap. While the many studies examine SDG individually, our study analyzes SDG 7 to 12 together to show how these goals are interconnected. And finally, Section 2.6 discusses social structural challenges, which are barriers created by society and institutions that require inclusive policy and better collaborations to overcome. That concludes for Chapter 2. On the next slide, I will present Chapter 3, Methodology. First, this study uses secondary data from United Nations, UN, annual reports, journal articles, and other incredible sources covering SDG 7 to 12 from 2016 to 2025. These resources we use to analyze progress, challenges, and key findings to support our research. Also use several AI tools such as Gemini help summarize the information and explain key issues. Cloud AI improve the writing and organization of the report. ChatGPT and Gemini AI supported data analyzed by identifying trends and comparing annual report. Nation AI help organize information related to SDG 10, and Microsoft Copilot simplified information on SDG 11 and improved the report clarity. And the last one is Perplexity AI assisted in finding reliable journal reports and reference. Although these AI tools supported our work, and information analysis and conclusion were carefully reviewed and verified by our group to ensure accuracy and maintain academic integrity. I'll pass this presentation to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Nathaniel Robin. Today I'll be presenting you the first finding for SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, which focus on ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. Let's start by looking at where we were a few years ago. Between 2010 and 2017, the world actually saw some progress. We can see that the global access to electricity grew from 83% to 87%, with millions of new connections made, especially in South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. On the renewable energy device, we also saw important growth, largely driven by the falling cost of solar and wind power. Installed capacity increased in both developed and developing nations. However, even during these periods of strong developments, we can see that 840 million people still lack electricity, mostly in rural areas such as in South Asia, Pakistan and Nepal, and Sub-Saharan Africans. Next, we can see that recent data shows some progress, but is not an indicator of major developments. This is because 685 million people still lack electricity, even though the data shows 91% of global population had access to electricity. What concerning is the population growth and global energy crisis are now outpacing the ability to build new grid connections, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa. Moreover, they still have hidden health issues focusing on clean cooking crisis, which stated 2.1 billion people still rely on polluting fuels like wood and charcoal for basic cooking. Also see an inequality in clean energy. We see that 30% of global electricity installed capacity per person in developed countries is nearly 4 times higher than in developing nations. This is because the stalling progress is caused by the investment gap. International financial flows to developing countries for clean energy remain well below for their 2016 peak, which is actively slowing down the infrastructures project we desperately need to get back on track.
Today I will be presenting about SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, which focuses on promoting economic growth, productive employment, and decent work for all. Overall, after the COVID-19 pandemic, the global economy has gradually recovered, especially between 2021 to 2023. Many countries saw improvement in business activities, production, and trade. However, this recovery is still uneven as developing countries continue to face challenges in maintaining stable growth and attracting investment. Next, for employment trends, there are more job opportunities now in sectors like technology, digital services, and e-commerce due to digital transformation. However, youth employment still are high, around 13% globally, and many workers still depend on informal jobs with low wages and less security. Next, for labor rights and workplace safety. There has been major improvements such as stronger labor laws and better working condition and protection for workers has been enforced. But issues such as unsafe working condition, child labor, and forced labor are still in some regions and need to be addressed. Next, for innovation and productivity, technology, artificial intelligence, and digitalization, they all have helped businesses become more efficient and productive. At the same time, unequal access to technology and digital skills means that not all communities benefit equally from this progress. Finally, for income inequality and poverty, even though economic growth has improved living standards in many countries, inequality remains a major issue. This is why social protection such as welfare support and minimum wage policies are important to ensure that the benefits of growth are shared more fairly. Looking at the graph, we can see the trends of SDG 8 indicators from 2016 to 2035. The blue line shows global GDP growth, which dropped sharply in 2022 due to COVID-19 but then recovered steadily after 2021. The orange line shows unemployment, which increased during the pandemic because many people lost jobs, but it gradually decreased as economies recovered. Then the gray line represents working poverty, which shows slow but steady decline over time. This means fewer people are working but still living in poverty, showing some improvement, but progress is still gradual. Overall, the graph shows while there is clear recovery after COVID-19, progress is still uneven. So SDG 8 is improving, but more inclusive and fair economic growth is still needed for all.
Hello everyone, today I will present about SDG 9, which focus on industry, innovation and infrastructure. The main goal here is to build better infrastructure, create sustainable industry and boost innovation. As we know, from 2016 to 2025, the world has gone through many changes, including disruption in supply chains and the swift increase of digitalization. Our assignment aims to evaluate the progress of SDG 9 and look at the industrial gap between developed countries and the at least developed countries, or LDC. Now I will explain the findings in our graph, which highlights the industrial and innovation gap between developed nation and the at least developed country, or LDC. Please look at the graph on the screen. First, let's talk about automation. Developed countries are very advanced with 85% adoption rate for automation technology. Meanwhile, LDC are only at 50%. This shows that LDC are still struggling to modernize their industry. Second, let's look at R&D investment. This is the money spent on research and innovation. Developed nations invest about 2.5% on their GDP, but LDC spend very little, often less than 0.3%. This is why they are falling behind in creating new technology. Lastly, let's talk about the internet. Even though 85% of the world has mobile network coverage, many people cannot avoid it. The higher costs of data plans and digital device makes the internet too expensive for many people in LDC to use in their daily lives. In conclusion, the graph shows the developed countries have a big advantage in technology and finding. The reach of SDG 9 goes by 2030. We must find a way to help LDC bridge the gap and make technology budget friendly for everyone. To finish, let's look at the future of SDG 9. I predict three big changes. The first is carbon-free industry. Industry will move towards net zero emission by using clean energy like solar and AI to reduce waste. The second is affordable innovation. Technology will no longer be limited to developed countries. I expect more focus on low cost and high impact technology for developing countries through technology transfer. And the last is internet as a human right. Internet access will become basic need like water and electricity. Government are expected to provide subsidy so that everyone can participate in technology economy. That's all for me. Thank you.
Hello Dr. and everyone, my name is Nafarizato Akmal binti Sabah and I will present SDG 10. From 2016 until 2025, SDG 10 reduce inequality show both progress and challenges in reducing inequality between and within countries in the earlier years. Many countries experience positive improvements as the income growth of the poorest 14% of the population increased faster than the national average. Developing countries also receive better trade opportunities through improved market access and reduced tariff. However, the labor share of GDP continued to decline, showing that economic benefits were not equally distributed among workers. Between 2018 and 2019, progress continued through lower remittance costs and better support for developing nations. However, income inequality remained a major issue because wealth was still concentrated among higher income groups. Many low-income communities continue to face difficulties in receiving equal economic opportunities. From 2020 onwards, the COVID-19 pandemic created a major setback for SDG 10. The crisis increased inequality as vulnerable groups such as women, children, elderly people, refugees, migrants, and low-income families were affected the most. Global refugee numbers increased and many developing countries face slower economic recovery compared to advanced economies. By 2022, until 2025, global inequality remained a serious challenge, although some countries show improvements in reducing income gaps. Issues such as discrimination, equal access to opportunities, increasing refugee population, and declining labor income continue. Economic growth often benefits wealth owners more than workers, causing the gap between rich and poor groups to continue. The main challenges of SDG 10 include income and wealth inequality, discrimination, migration, and refugee problems, unequal recovery after COVID-19, high remittance costs, and limited participation of developing countries in global decision-making. Overall, SDG 10 has made progress, but stronger efforts are still needed to create economic opportunities, reduce discrimination, and ensure that development benefits everyone equally. Next, predict future. First, gradual improvement of equality SDG 10 is expected to show continuous improvement in reducing inequalities. This can happen through stronger government policies and support from organizations. Improvements in social protection system, education opportunities, healthcare access, and inclusive economic development can help create a fairer society. Second, technology and inclusive development. Technology development is projected to provide more opportunities, especially for marginalized and disadvantaged communities. Better access to the digital tools can help people improve skills, find jobs, and participate in economic activities, which can reduce inequality gaps. Last, future challenges and actions need. Although progress is expected, several challenges may slow down SDG 10 achievement, such as economic problems, inflation, climate change, conflicts, and unequal access to resources. Continuous cooperation between governments, organizations, and communities is important to create fair strategies and reduce inequalities by 2034.
Present sections 4.5, which focus on sustainable development goal 11, sustainable city and communities, covering the period from 2016 to 2025. SDG 11 aims to make cities and human settlement inclusive, self-resilient, and sustainable. As the world's urban populations continue to grow, cities face increasing challenges such as a housing shortage, traffic congestions, air pollution, poor waste management, and climate-related disasters. From 2016 to 2025, significant progress has been made in promoting sustainable urban development. Many countries have invested in improving public transportation system, developing affordable housing, expanding green spaces, and strengthening disaster risk management. These initiatives help improve people's quality of life while making cities more resilient to future challenges. However, despite these achievements, several issues remain. More than 1 billion people worldwide still live in informal settlements or slums, where access to safe housing, clean water, sanitation, and other essential services is limited. Rapid urbanizations also increase pressure on the infrastructure, leading to higher levels of pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. In addition, climate changes has become one of the biggest challenges for cities. Extreme weather events such as floods, heat waves, and storms continue to threaten community infrastructure and economic activities. Therefore, government needs to strengthen climate adaptations strategies and improvement urban planning to reduce this risk. Overall, the progress made between 2016 and 2035 shows that sustainable urban development requires strong government policy, sufficient investment community, and participant, also international cooperation. While many countries have made encouraging progress, continued efforts are needed to ensure the cities remain inclusive, resilient, and environmentally sustainable for future generations. Let's take a look on the graph. Now I will explain chart 4.6.1, which shows the preparations of the urban population living in slums, informal settlements, or inadequate housing. This chart uses the overcrowding rate as an indicator. Overcrowding happens when too many people live in house is too small for the number of occupants. This affects people comfort, health, and overall quality of life, and it is closely related to SDG indicator 11.1.1, which aim to ensure everyone has access to safe and adequate housing. From 2016 to 2035, the data shows that overcrowding has gradually increased across all the areas. Cities recorded the highest overcrowding rates, increasing from 11% in 2016 to 16.9% in 2030. This indicates that more people are living in crowded housing, mainly because of the rapid urbanizations, increasing house demand, and rising living costs. Towns and suburbs also experience an increase from 5.9 to 9.6%, showing that house pressure is no longer limited to major cities. Although rural areas recorded the lowest overcrowding rates, they also increased from 3.5 to 5.5 over the same period. Another important observation is that one overcrowding become more noticeable after 2020, possible due to economic challenges and change in living conditions after the COVID-19 pandemic. In conclusion, this chart shows that overcrowding has become a growing housing challenge, especially in urban areas. This highlights the need for more affordable, adequate, and sustainable housing to achieve the targets of SDG 11. Let's move to the second chart. I will explain chart 4.6.2, which shows the proportions of the populations with convenience access to public transport. This indicator measures how easily people can access public transport, which is an important target under SDG 11 for creating inclusive and sustainable cities. The chart measures accessibility in two ways, within 500 meters and within a 10 minutes walk. Based on the data, access to public transport within a 10 minutes walk remained constantly high throughout the years, ranging between 93% and 95%. This shows that majority of the populations can conveniently reach public transport, reflecting a well-connected transportation system. However, access within 500 meters is lower at around 79%, although there was a slight improvement between 2016 and 2020. The increase was relatively small. This suggests that many people can still reach public transport on foot, but fewer live very close to bus stop or train stations. Another observation is that some years have missing data, indicating that data collections for this indicator was not fully consistent. In conclusion, the overall findings are positive because most people have convenient access to public transport. However, further improvements are needed to increase the number of people living within 500 meters of public transport, making urban transportations even more accessible, efficient, and sustainable under SDG 11. Let's move to the last curve. The last curve I will present chart 4.6.3, which shows government expenditures by selected functions from 2010 to 2025. These charts focus on two areas of government spending that supports SDG 11, which are biodiversity and landscape protections and cultural services. First, government spending on biodiversity and landscape protections increased gradually from 1.1 in 2010 to 2.6 in 2025. Although the growth is relatively small, it shows that government has continued investing in protecting natural ecosystem, green spaces, and the environment. On the other hand, spending on cultural services increased much more significantly, rising from 9.8 in 2010 to 18.7 in 2015 in the stronger investment in cultural development, heritage preservation, and community programs, which help improve social inclusion and the overall quality of life. Overall, both categories have a positive outward trend, especially after 2015, indicating that government has placed greater emphasis on sustainability. Also not include community development. In conclusion, this chart suggests that the government is increasingly investing in creating more sustainable and livable cities. However, spending on biodiversity remains much lower than spending on cultural services. Therefore, greater investment in environmental protection is still needed to achieve a better balance between environmental sustainability and community well-being under SDG 11. This one, I would like to present the future predictions for Sustainable Development Goal 11, SDG 11, which is sustainable city and communities based on the trends from 2016 to 2025. Cities are expected to continue growing as more people move to urban areas in search of better jobs, education, and living opportunities. By 2050, around 70% of the world population is expected to live in cities. However, this rapid urbanization will also create several challenges. The first challenge is housing. As urban population increase, the demand for affordable housing will continue to rise. Without proper planning, more people may end up living in informal settlement or overcrowded housing. The second challenge is public transportation. While many development countries are expanding sustainable transport systems such as electric buses and metro network, many developing countries still face limited access to reliable and affordable public transport. Another important issue is climate change. Cities are expected to experience more floods, heated waves, and other extreme weather events. At the same time, the loss of the green space may increase environmental problems unless governments strengthen climate adaptation measures. In addition, urban sprawl is expected to continue in many cities. This can lead to traffic congestions, higher infrastructure costs, and increased environment degradation if urban planning is not properly managed. On a positive note, many governments are improving disaster risk management and investing in smarter and more sustainable cities. There's also growing awareness of the importance of involving local communities in urban planning and decisions making. And in conclusion, the futures of SDG 11 present both opportunities and challenges. Although progress is being made in areas such as transportation, urban planning, and disaster preparedness, issues like housing shortage, climate risk, and inequality remain major concerns. Achieving sustainable city will require stronger policy, greater investment, and inclusive governments to ensure that no one is left behind. That's all from my part. SDG 11 or Goal 11. Thank you.
Good morning to Dr. Janice and my fellow friends. Today I want to talk about Sustainable Development Goal number 12, which is all about responsible consumption and production. Simply put, it means making more goods while using fewer resources and creating less waste. Let's look at how the world has tried to achieve this goal over the last 10 years. Our journey started in 2016. This was the year government began putting SDG 12 into their national plans and teaching people about saving resources. By 2000 2017, the focus shifted to better recycling and controlling factory waste. Then come 2018, which was a huge turning point. The world finally woke up to the dangers of plastic pollution into our ocean. Because of this, many countries started banning single-use plastic like bag and straw, and the shopper started looking for eco-friendly brands. In 2019, a great idea gained popularity: the circular economy. This is an economic system where we reuse, repair, recycle everything, so we don't have to keep digging up a new raw materials from the earth. But then 2020 arrived. The COVID-19 hit. The pandemic was a major roadblock. Recycling center closed down during the lockdowns, and we saw a massive explosion of plastic waste from the mask, glove, protective gear. However, it did teach us that our supply chains need to be much stronger and more resilient. Between 2021 and 2023, the focus was on bouncing back from the pandemic through a green recovery. Governments invested heavily in renewable energy. During this time, the world also tackled a massive issue, that is food waste. With so many hungry people in the world, governments and NGOs work hard to stop food from being thrown away at farm, shop, and homes. Companies also started using ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance rules to lower their carbon footprint. But by the end of 2023, global reports give us a reality check. Even with all this work, we were still using too many resources, and progress was just too slow. That brings us to 2024 and 2025, which the 2030 deadline getting closer. Governments stopped making suggestions and started making strict laws. Technology became our best tool. Factories, farms, and transport systems started using digital touch and green technology to monitor their pollution and aim the carbon neutrality. Countries also started working together across borders, and schools began teaching students how to be responsible consumers. Now, let's take a look at this graph. This graph is our actual journey with global waste and resource consumption from 2016 to 2025. If you look at the green line, that represents the ideal path we should be on to meet our SDG 12 goals by 2030. It goes straight down, but our real journey represented by the blue line looks like a roller coaster. Let me break down why it looks like this. From 2020 2016 to 2019, you can see a nice steady drop in the blue line. This was a great start. Governments were setting policies, and in 2020 2018, we saw a big dip because countries successfully banned single-use plastic like straw and bag. The year 2020, look at this massive spike right here where the blue line shot up. This was the COVID-19 pandemic. Progress crashed because recycling center closed down. And the world was flooded with millions of tons of medical waste like masks and gloves. The 2023 reality check. After the pandemic, we tried to recover, but by 2023, the blue line crept back up. Global reports give us a wake-up call. Our production and CISA were still increasing, and we were moving way too slow compared to that green target line. 2024 and 2025, finally look at the recent drop at the very end of the blue line. This happened because governments stopped playing nice. They introduced incredibly strict technology laws and carbon neutrality goals, forcing the line to head down again. As you can see, the gap between blue line of where we are and the green line of where we need to be is still wide. We are running out of time, and this is why we need faster, more aggressive action. More aggressive action, right? So the conclusion of my video is
We'll conclude our presentations. Overall, this report has examined the progress of Sustainable Development Goals 7 to 12 over the period from 2016 to 2025. The finding shows the world has made encouraging progress in many areas. Access to clean energy has increased, innovation and infrastructure have continued to develop, and governments have placed greater emphasis on creating sustainable cities and promoting responsible consumptions. At the same time, economic growth and environment opportunities have improved in many countries, while efforts to reduce inequality have continued through various nations and international initiatives. However, despite this achievement, significant challenges still remain. Many developing countries continue to face limited access to clean energy, unemployment, inadequate infrastructure, income inequality, housing shortage, environmental degradations, and climate-related risks. Global events such as the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, and the energy crisis have also slowed the progress and widened development gaps between the developed and developing countries. Therefore, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 will require stronger international cooperation, better governments, greater investment in sustainable development, and more inclusive public policies. Government, business, educational institutions, communities, and individuals all have an important role to play in ensuring that development is sustainable and that no one is left behind. In conclusion, SDG 7 to 12 are also interconnected. Progress in one goal supports progress the others. They're working together to improve clean energy, economic growth, innovations, equality, sustainable cities, and responsible consumptions. We can build a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable futures for everyone. So thank you for your attention. We are now open to Q&A. You guys can leave any question in our YouTube box chat and below. Thank you so much to watching our presentation. That's all from us. Bye bye.